as a catalyst, you tend to be so much further ahead that not necessarily everybody will be there with you. For the most cases, CEOs are, but everybody else on the team needs to be there. So making sure that you ask the right questions to feed them down a path is what I would recommend.
Hi, I'm Tracy Lovejoy.
And I'm Shannon Lucas. We are the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to empowering Catalyst to create bold, powerful change in the world.
This is our podcast, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, where we speak with Catalyst executives about ways to successfully lead transformation in large organizations. Today, we are thrilled to have a visionary leader with us, a longtime friend, Andre Christian. He has a proven track record in spearheading business transformation and fostering innovation across diverse industries. He's adept at anticipating and solving complex challenges with a human-centered approach. He served both as the VP of Innovation and the VP of Product Design and Engineering at SES Satellites, where we had the great pleasure of working with him. And today he has founded his own business, Evoke IQ, with the goal to simplify the lives of small business owners by unleashing the power of real-time data. Andre, thank you for spending time with us today.
Glad to be here.
I would love to have you. So I just shared a couple sentences, but would love to hear in your own words about your catalytic journey. Can you share with us a few career highlights that are, show the moments that you're proud and allow us to see your catalytic nature?
Sure. So I'll go back to the beginning when my catalytic journey started. I was an intern at SAIC. I had built relationships with some senior leaders, and the guy's name was Pete Engstrom, super nice guy, willing to open doors and show us how the world worked. And one day, he kind of caught me, understood what I was about. He said to me, Andre, you're a change agent. And I looked at him like, okay, cool, great. What does that do for me, right? Then, throughout my career, I've always had the ability to see what's coming around the corner, connect dots together, and actually start to move in that direction. I'll give you two examples. I worked for SES, which had an American subsidiary called SES Americom at the time, and we pioneered a project called IP Prime. SES was distributing content to cable TV companies. We said, no, we were going to give telcos completely new customer base, completely new relationship we need to build to be able to deliver the triple play. This was voice, video, and data at the time. It didn't work. Technically, it did, but from a business model perspective, it didn't. And that opened my eyes and started me thinking about, it's not just technical, it's a holistic solution that needs to be put forward. And you really want to focus on the business model first. When it came to product design and engineering, SES was caught in a little bit of a challenge in that we had the inability to get product out the door, right? It was clear we would take product from vendors, we would integrate it, skin it, push it out, but we wanted to do our own thing. So how do we bring new ways of working into the business? I introduced Agile, DevOps, and SRE functions into the role because as a systems thinker, you continually think about how do you optimize, how do you improve? And honestly, I had such an exciting time doing that, where you all bought in. Every day I would wake up with a new solution to a problem that I heard about yesterday. I would read, figure out, talk, discuss, and my vision continually iterated on where we needed to be. And then lastly, career highlight, I wouldn't say I like risk, but I love the startup rush that you get where everybody's pushing in the same direction. The company I then went to work for was called O3B, which stood for the other 3 billion. And at the time, satellite connectivity was very geosynchronous heavy, right? Other people had tried some different constellation constructs, but you know what? There was an opportunity for us to disrupt. And we built a medium Earth orbit constellation, which delivered way more capacity to people on Earth than I'd ever seen before. We brought the satellites closer to Earth, so latency was reduced. And it really changed the game for satellite connectivity at the time. And this was, we launched in probably 2014. Now you have Starlink and so on, but I would say we were the first.
I love the conciseness of those really important moments. And throughout that, I am hearing a definition of catalyst, the way you described it. And so I would love to have you, in your own words, share, how do you relate to this catalyst concept?
So the catalyst concept for me was eye-opening, to say the least. When I first met Shannon through a mutual friend, I was somewhat blown away. I just left one role, product design engineering. I was getting ready to take on another role, as I do, as all catalysts do. You end up with new jobs every couple of years. And it was serendipitous because it's exactly what I needed at the time. It's funny how the world works. A lot of people go through school and they end up figuring out their discipline of choice and they get really good at it and so on. And I would always kind of question, what was I great at? I could pick up network engineering, systems infrastructure, you name it, I can do it. So I would say I'm a jack of all trades, but master of none. And what that really then gave me was a moment of pause to say, well, hey, what am I great at? What are my unique skill sets? And you'd end up going around in a circle. And for me, it was somewhat frustrating because you're affecting change. I just didn't know it was a thing, right? As much as I was lauded for my future thinking and so on, I never really thought of it as anything special, right? I think after reading the book Move Fast, Break Shit, and Burn Out, it solidified for me that I'm not mad, I'm not crazy. I found my tribe. I found my people where we see the world through similar lenses, and I'm able to, if I employ the tools, I can then harness that to be super powerful. And for me, going through the journey as a catalyst, I talk from Pete Engstrom all the way up from SASC all the way through, I picked up bits and bobs on my own. Hey, probably I should meditate a little bit more, or I should be able to do this. And when I play golf, I don't think about anything else, right? There are little things I were able to pick up. I coached a lot of teams, and that also then gave me a moment to pause, because I'm in it. You're in it. You can't think about anything else. So the way that I was able to resonate with the catalyst concept spoke volumes for me at the time, because I figured it out. And I think I remember telling Shannon after going through the course, look, my dear, you've made me forever employable, because I know my value, and that right there is gold.
So how do you synthesize your value now that you have this awareness and you connect those pieces?
It's a phenomenal question. Look, I think one is finding the right organization who's ready to embrace change. You can read a job description and know psychologically where the company's at, right? That's the first red flag for me. Second, you also know what you need to succeed. So you're a lot more, you're going into a conversation eyes open, right? And then I think third thing is you require a lot of support. So how do you ensure that you have the support of the senior leadership to be able to execute, right? Look, all catalysts are going to be quite confident taking spares out their back. They're always that person, right? They're always that guy taking them out. Okay, I'll run ahead. But what gives you credence is knowing that people have got your back and they're willing to support.
I love that. And so let's say you've identified the organization that's ready for you. You have a sit down with maybe the CEO. How do you tell her, I'm the right person for you, given what I see in your organization, right? This is something that a lot of catalysts will struggle to find the words for. of this is the, this is what I bring you. This is how I can help you.
I think you have to be pretty honest with where the other person's at. It starts with empathy, right? Is what I would say. Because as a catalyst, you tend to be so much further ahead that not necessarily everybody will be there with you. For the most cases, CEOs are, but everybody else on the team needs to be there. So making sure that you ask the right questions to feed them down a path is what I would recommend. If you come out and say, well, I'm the best person because I did this, that's not helping the situation, right? The question is, hey, what happens if we don't do this? Hey, how have you thought about doing this, right? And really do your research and make sure you understand some of the other dynamics that might not be evident, or they might not be visible. Let me put it that way, right?
I love it. So what I'm hearing is while you've had this awakening of what your value is and you're forever employable, you're not going in with a sales pitch when you talk to people. You're going in understanding, first I need to do research. I need to know that they're really ready for what I can bring. And then I need to understand them and kind of bring them along so they themselves have the awareness that they understand what I can do for them. It's like a
Yeah.
Jedi mind trick.
Well, you give me a lot more credit than is due. Look, I think this change journey that people are on, and you can see it in this VUCA world right now. Everybody's being disrupted, everybody's being challenged, and everybody's being forced to innovate. So I was speaking to a distributor a couple of months ago, and he was saying, Andre, I was speaking to the CEO of the division, and he basically said, Andre, you know what? Look, we have this concept called Beyond X, and this is what we think it means. And I said to him, well, hold on, where does Beyond X stop? Right? So now you've also then freed them to think about, whoa, you know what? I had my guardrails right here, but no, the lens, the aperture we need to be looking at the problem through is a little bit wider. And then they're able to then go away, reflect, and then come back and have a much more spirited dialogue about, well, okay, if we think the vision is there, and you can then ultimately co-create the vision with them. So then they're bought in. It's no more selling the dream. Now it's about, hey, can you execute? Can you deliver? Can you show them proof points that they would feel super confident in funding you more and so on and so forth, right?
It sounds like the process is like there's a meta level to your process, which is you are walking them through, how you will show up and the ways that you'll be able to help the organization from the first conversation, which is taking the blinders off, thinking about the problem statement, showing up with empathy, bringing the curiosity. It's really fascinating. Yeah, Tracy, you want to ask your next question?
So hearing what you've come to see as the superpowers that you bring, and I'll also pull on a couple of the things I heard in your journey as you talked about SEIC, SES, and O3B. I heard words like, Peter Engstrom, you're a change agent. I heard systems thinker. I've heard, holism. So I'm curious how you feel being a catalyst supported you once you were in that executive rank.
I think the catalyst support, again, when I saw the catalyst formula, for me, the vision, iterate, action, it kind of brought it together in that now I know my process. I know how my mind's going to think. Let me not run 2,000 miles ahead of the organization. Let me manage my conversation. And honestly, it's a little bit tough, right? Because I see it. I want it. I want to go there. And I say, well, hold on, no. I left that person last week, Friday, in our tag up talking about problem A. I've gone 20 steps ahead. Well, guess what? They're still taking one baby step along the way. So how do you, again, go back to empathy? How do you bring them along, right? And I think in the catalyst formula, being more mindful about what you're trying to achieve and how you engage with your senior leadership is key. It helps you think, and even your reports, instead of my reports at the time, or the people I was supporting at the time, Andrew's all over the place. Now I'm able to more measure and control the information delivery. So while I see it and I can get there, they understand, we're just going to take 2 steps to get here as opposed to 15, right?
It sounds like the process of self-discovery, and I relate to this deeply, Andre. Like, I was still imperfect. I'm still imperfect, but just like having that awareness, like you're talking about, can help you navigate it. I wanted to go back to something that builds sort of on that, though, because you were saying when Tracy was asking, like, how do you articulate your value? And you were like, well, first, let's find the right org and go in eyes wide open. And you said, at this point, you know what you need, so you can ask the questions. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about what you need from an organization to be successful for the people who haven't sort of had that awareness yet.
So that's really interesting. If you are in that predicament, I feel for you, first off, because you end up feeling like you're on an island. Hopefully you can get something out of this. Look, it's looking at, look, I'll say firstly, the first thing I would do is look at the numbers. Is the first thing I would do, because you kind of have to follow the money. That's the first thing. Hey, where is their money going? What are they investing in? What's the growth? Because one of the things I learned, you have to speak the CFO's language. That's number one, right? You can't be building this great technical widget without understanding materially how it's going to impact the org, because he or she somewhat controls the destiny of the resources, controls the resources, right? I think the CEO and senior leadership, engaging with them to understand their perspectives, right? We call it a listening tour. Really being able to, hey, have a coffee conversation with these people, not in the workplace, not where constrained and people are expected to act a certain way. Go and have a drink with them, or a non-alcoholic beverage, if you will, just to engage in dialogue and understand off the record what's going on, how's it going, right? Because you're going to do yourself a massive benefit, because one, you start building a great relationship, which you're going to need down the road, and then number two, they also understand a little bit better about you and where you're coming from. I would say those are the 2 key things I would want to look at in terms of, one, the financial and resources, and 2, the broader, I would say, senior team, if you can engage, if you have the ability to engage with them. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. There's a little bit underneath that is the slowing down to understand the fundamentals, because we can get caught with the thing that we think is the big idea, but if we're not really aligned. And you had asked a great question a couple of years ago in the Catalyst Leadership Trust about like strategy, because as Catalyst we have to understand and align with the strategy, but what is the new way of articulating strategy? You've been wildly successful in your career. I loved your intro where you talked about all the things that you got done. What were 1 or 2 of the biggest challenges that you encountered trying to drive change along the way?
There were two. I would think of. The first is running too far ahead. That's the first thing. And I didn't really clue into the ramifications of until too late. It took a lot of selling internally, a lot of engaging, and even though you're saying and sharing, people might be listening but not hearing, right? So how do you get them to really understand what you're saying? Yes, you could actively listen, but giving them other proof points, showing them that it's working, being tangible in, I said I was going to do this and I delivered this, right? And then conversely, getting them out of their little bubble to go and see something else. Hey, this is what's happening at company XYZ. This is the problem they had. Now you're not only an internal change agent, now you're bringing external ideas into the business, right? Where now you can get them more confident in, wow, okay, it's not only Andre running around with his head cut off talking about this, it's that company there, that company there. And if you could also create relationships at organizational levels where it's not you anymore, they can then have a relationship with a direct peer, it would be fabulous. So I would say those are some quick lessons learned from running too far ahead. That's your first one. And I would say the second thing is burnout. Burnout for me, look, I burnt out twice at SES in a startup. Woo. Sorry, at O3B, we were pushing so hard, and I ended up getting tasked with solving problems. The CEO would say, Andre, hey, go and take a look at this, go and figure out this, go and fix this. And I just remember being so numb. And at the time, I didn't really realize what was happening, but I was just so withdrawn, so numb. And even people, Andre, you're right. No, this is months where I was just I was a shell of myself, right? So being able to recognize and hopefully manage it before you're there is a key to this change. It happened when I was doing a bunch of agile stuff. I pushed for 3 years really, really hard to climb this mountain, and I was just done. I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't want to think about it. I was just done. So then how do you manage your transition so it continues to exist? How do you recognize that you're going to get to that point and you prevent yourself from getting there? What methods are you going to employ to make sure that you take care of yourself? Mental health is now a big thing, and everybody's talking about it, more so for the catalyst / change agent who's trying to climb Mount Everest, right? How are you going to support yourself, give yourself the right oxygen, make sure you have the right Sherpa with you to be able to get up that mountain, you know?
How do you do that, Andre?
Gosh, here we go. I think each person's different, is what I'll say. And you somewhat need to find what works for you, but I think there's some tried and true ways that I have learned. And the number one thing for me is mindfulness. Hands down, for me, just spending 10 minutes every day in a calm state where I can take some deep breaths, right? And really center myself gives me the opportunity to be crystal clear on what I'm trying to achieve. And it eliminates all the clutter. I brought up golf earlier on. For me, golf, many people think of it as a pastime outdoors and so on. For me, it's great. I don't use my phone when I'm on the golf course. And for me, that is gold because my mind's not running. I'm not thinking. And everybody, I love to cook as well. So anything where you can get in somewhat a meditative state where you deeply focus on that thing, for me, is what will help you. And that's why I said everybody's different, right? Cooking for me is something that I'll do, and I'm happy as a lark to do it. You don't need to ask, beg. I'll cook dinner every night because I get an hour and a half of just pure focus and execution.
Tracy and I will be over. What are you making?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
One final question on the burnout. How do you know now when it's coming? Like, have you been able to sense into some of the early warning signs?
It will never happen again.
It will never happen again.
Yeah. So because I've changed the way I operate, I've changed how I manage it. So I'll never let it get to that point where I'm a pain to be around at home or I'm a pain to be around at work because the side effects they're too detrimental to even let it get to that point, right? So I'm really actively trying to incorporate a lot of these things in how I do my day-to-day, right?
Amazing. You're my model. I'm gonna try. I have a follow-up question because you talked about all of these really big, going back to your systems thinking and your systems level changes that you've created at organizations, like having people move to being a more product-focused organization when they didn't have that capability and bringing an agile and DevOps. A question that we're sort of testing a lot is how do you bring in all of those new ways of operating, which is disruptive, without disrupting it too much at the same time?
So like perform while transforming, right?
Great way to say that.
That's how we characterize it. I think in organizations, you have to realize that during this change, you need both. You need to be ambidextrous. You need to be able to ensure that the teams that need to perform understand why and the benefit to the org. The transformation side is really about, hey, giving them the awareness, making sure they have the desire, making sure they have the knowledge to be able to then embrace the change and implement it. And then if you could end up with both of those, you're then able to show proof that this new way of working will bear the fruit required. And then it's not forgetting the people that are performing, it's how do you get them on the journey as well when their time comes along. Trying to do everything at the same time is obviously a recipe for disaster. But I would say as a catalyst leader, you would be most adept at being able to hold multiple plates and understand the state in the evolution of each, right? So you can be that calming voice to say, hey, yeah, we got it. This might not be working as well as we wanted. We can fix that. Or we're seeing outsized gains here. Let's double down on that quicker, right? And you can then help providing navigation to the business so that everybody's not freaking out.
I love that. That's definitely a new catchphrase for Shannon and I. Perform while transform. That's really powerful. Is that an Andreism or?
No, I was just about to say I'm not going to take credit for it. It was a SESism.
At SES,
that's how we characterize some of the change we would.
Oh, well, that's good. We can credit as SES. And it's funny because we got to work with you there, but that wasn't something that made it into our language at the time. And I'd love to ask you a little bit in relation to that. We had the great honor to work with you and other executives at SES in bringing in a Catalyst program. And I would love to, have some time for us to reflect on that. For our listening audience, a Catalyst program is when we come in, help organizations identify their catalysts and put them together with strategic initiative, very much like you're talking about, Andre, and, kind of make sure that it's the people who have the desire, give them the tools and knowledge to be able to implement, begin to show proof of a particular concept where it's just a small group. And so would love your thoughts on that work that we got to do with you and share your thinking with other Catalyst executives out there.
Sure, not a problem. Look, the story that people don't know is when we tried to undertake that work, we actually didn't get through the first year, if you recall, Shannon, right? We tried, we pushed, and I was a little bit taken aback, right? It was a slap in the face. We had done all the internal selling, co-creating, marketing internally to get this program out, and it didn't fly the first year. But we were persistent, like all catalysts are, and we came back the second year. And for me, I couldn't have been happier, to be honest, because I was able to see it firsthand. Look, you have an organization with a hierarchy and everybody's looking up for change, right? Senior leaders in the org are stressed, they're fighting multiple fights. And the opportunity we had with the Catalyst program, after having gone through it myself, we were able to bring 4 people along, other catalysts we had kind of identified. So they were able to, quote unquote, drink the Kool-Aid. They saw it, they saw the opportunity. And then we were able to launch it across a much wider cohort. That wider cohort went through a very interesting process to be down selected into it. It wasn't just, hey, I want to do it and you were in. We actually tried to match make and find the best people who would be receptive to what they were going to be taught, but also be willing to then act upon it after, right? There's no point, hey, how many people in organizations go to courses, come back and never really impact the organization? And we didn't want to be that. So we were able to then, with those 18 people, then work with the senior team, get them initiatives that were championed by the senior team, and then have people self-select into what resonated with them. One of the things about being a catalyst is everybody has their passion projects, what gets them super excited. You can't dictate it. You're not going to tell them what it is. And we all know when you're connected to a project and you're invested in it, there's nothing better. You would work umpteen hours at night to solve it. You would do as much as you want to make it a success, or much as you can rather to make it a success. But some other things emerged which I thought were super interesting, in that you then created this network of change agents across the organization, where in a globally distributed company, where I was speaking to Buddy last week, and he said, Andrew, a lot of how SES worked at the time was, here, you had to pick up a phone, you had to know somebody to get it done. You now create this fabric again where you know the other person at the end of the line, you've solved the problem together. You can now help move the organization forward to tackle bigger and better things. So I think there's so many benefits of running the program that, yeah, I can't understand why any organization who's embarking on that level of change would not try to incite as many change agents so that you could perform while transform. Again, you go back there. You need people who are willing to jump out and run forward. Well, you have them in the org. It's how do you free them up to then say, look, this is the mountain we need to climb. Go after it, guys. You have our support. And hopefully that would help organizations tackle this transformation challenge that everybody has.
Amazing. Thank you. We hear two things when we're talking with organizations about Catalyst programs, and I'm wondering if you have advice for them. One is, we often hear, and it's like across the Catalyst Leadership Trust, this is true too, where they're like, oh, our leadership team has just been shaken up. There's a new CEO, like the whole SLT or ELT is not totally, nailed down right now. So we can't do anything new there. Or it's an and or the strategy is in flux and we're waiting for the strategy to be totally nailed down, and so we can't do anything. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on Catalyst programs in the face of those two challenges.
So as a catalyst, I have about 15 thoughts. So I'll give you the first, right? So the first is simple. Everybody talks about having a strategy, but I think Amazon has taught us best. It's wrap yourself tightly around that customer and run as fast as you can to solve their problems, right? So I think we overthink the strategy thing. I think we want to put PowerPoints together and all this kind of stuff. No, look, guys, it's pretty simple. Get closer, engage faster, disrupt yourself. That's it. So that's how I'd answer the strategy question. The reason I answer it that way is because you don't have time to sit there and wait till the PowerPoint's dry to then publish it so everybody could subscribe to it. You don't have that gestation cycle. It should be, and you should be willing to say, hey, how do I find people who can tackle these problems today to help me tomorrow? I don't have 6 months. I don't have a year. So I'd get them running immediately. So that for me would be key. And then in terms of change in the CLT, the fact of the matter is organizations, the best organizations are going to continually evolve. So you have to be able to withstand the SLT evolving. And this is why, we say top down, having a relationship with the CEO and having a champion thought to the CEO to unlock this type of change program is key, because as people move around, you still understand the core reason why you're doing it and the benefits you want to see. And if person X leaves and person Y comes in, they have to ascribe to the theory, because that's the only way the organization evolves and will be able to compete tomorrow.
Amazing. Thank you. All right. Final fun question. Who's your favorite famous Catalyst, past or present, and why?
Good question. So look, my favorite catalyst is, drum roll, please. Roosevelt, right? Not because he won the Nobel Prize.
Right, who I was drum rolling over you. I'd missed it. I'm sorry.
Oh, Teddy Roosevelt. Sorry.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, not because he won the Nobel Peace Prize. And he was a big conservationist, affected change across the board, but it's because of his fabulous speech, The Man in the Arena, right? It speaks volumes the first time I read it, I was like, honestly, like I wanted to cry. I got teary. And it's on my desk right now. I'm looking at it. Like, that's for me. Again, you know how long ago change agents have been here, disrupting, changing, pushing throughout all of history, right? And he's one of them. So if I could be a little bit as good as he was, I'd be winning.
So good. And I have to say, every time, because I use this in a lot of workshops, every time I watch Brene Brown read it, I get so teary. Like, ah. Andre, as always, and Tracy and I started this conversation by saying, like, the mindfulness and the way, whatever you do and the way that you show up for us is like a calming salve on our nervous system. And we also get inspired and learn something every time we talk with you. So thank you, Andre.
Great to be with you all. Thank you
And
very much.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about how to create bold, powerful change in the world, be sure to check out our book, the one that Andre is referencing, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, or go to our website at catalystconstellations.com.
And if you enjoyed this episode as much as Shannon and I have, please take 10 seconds to rate it on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you have other catalysts in your life, which we know you do as a fellow catalyst, hit the share button and send a link their way. Thanks again.
Thanks again.